Okay. I think we need to talk about the race world first and some of the high points and low points and problems that I personally feel there are with the race itself and possibly with Blizzard's implementation of some of the things that hinder the race itself. So, there's no doubting or denying the fact that the race world first pulls in a huge audience. Um, I don't really know how many people it even brings to the game or anything like that, but the amount of viewership is very large. I mean, even Max's stream by himself, I think he was pulling at least like 30,000 a day, probably more. So there's that. Um, and so I think it's good overall for the game, and I think that there's a huge amount of people who like watching it, and then there's a lot of players in these guilds that like participating. Um, and I'm not. I know that Blizzard doesn't want to get involved with it, and they want all the guilds to do it on their own. They don't really want to participate in it. But one thing that I think Blizzard mostly really needs to focus on here, or at least fix, is the patch or weekly reset cycle, because there's not really a good reason, at least in my opinion, for there to be separate days for different regions. I know that it's like, well, we want to do it on this day, and because that's when most NA guilds want the reset to happen, and we want to do it on this day because that's when most EU guilds want the reset to happen. But to be honest, I don't think that any particular guild really cares what the reset day is, right? It doesn't really matter if you raid 2 days a week. You're going to be able to get the same amount of pulls for each boss, and it doesn't really matter when the reset happens. And I think that overall, it doesn't really benefit anybody to have like separate days um, for the launch and reset. So I think it would make way more sense to have a global reset day and a global launch day, so that we don't have this huge animosity between NA and EU in terms of the world first. And like I said, I don't think that the like average player, average guild really cares that much about what day the reset actually happens. I don't think that it matters to them at all, to be honest. Now as for the race, I think that the race leading up to um, just after Painsmith was really really good. It kind of came in. You had like guilds fighting for um, progress all the way up, and then you get to Soul Render, where Limit kind of ran into a wall for a bit, but then they only got a few pulls and they came back the next day, and Blizzard had fixed some of the issues with it, and they killed it pretty quick after that. And then they immediately hit Painsmith, which was an insane mid wall for these guilds. It took them an insane number of pulls to even get down, and then the fact that you get Limit getting stuck here, and then it gives a lot of time for um, Echo to catch up is pretty amazing. And then Echo even beating Limit when this was like the first, like it kind of like solidified this race, like leading up to that, it was just like, well, of course, like these kills are gonna kind of go back and forth between whatever guilds happen to be raiding first. Usually NA gets to go first because that's when the launch happens, unfortunately. But then you actually hit Painsmith, and it's like, wow, this is where the race actually starts. And you're like, I'm excited to see how these next few bosses are going to be, because they're supposed to be mechanically some of the harder fights. Maybe not harder mechanically than Painsmith, but as far as numbers go, they should be harder. Um, and then they weren't. And uh, I mean, you can say like, well, there were like some cheese strategies for Fate Scribe, and there were some cheese strategies for KT, but I don't think that really matters that much, because even if you look at Guardian, like that was such an easy fight for these guilds. I mean, if you think about how many pulls it would take for like normal guilds to do something like um, Fate Scribe or KT, it should have far exceeded what it took. And then if you look at Guardian, I mean, it's taking like some smaller guilds like less than 30 pulls. And I know it's supposed to be an easy mechanical fight, but like if you look at Sludge Fist, like the tuning on that fight was just perfect, and I wish they had done something similar with Guardian of the first ones. It's kind of unfortunate that after Painsmith, the race became pretty meaningless, at least until Sylvanas. Um, and then, of course, once you get to Sylvanas, then you have this weird kind of fight where it was really exciting. I think leading up until Echo hit the 50 mark, and then you saw that Sylvanas went down to like probably 45. And at the time, they didn't know, they were guessing 45 because of some data mining that had gone on with a patch or hotfix a few days prior to the guilds making it to Sylvanas. And the reason I say that it was good as a race up until then is because it's like there wasn't really anything after that 50%. Like if they had added like a secret mythic phase down to 40%, or like um I don't know, something else where like maybe you go in the center and you fight Anduin, because just doing another 5% seems kind of like a cheap thing from Blizzard, you know? Like it was kind of like there was no real major improvement from the fight from Heroic, where, you know, on Sire Denathrius, we had like this insane phase 3 where half the guild has to go into the like second realm, and then they can't run over each other, otherwise the whole, or they both die, right? Like that's insane. Like that would have been so sick if there was like a secret hidden mythic phase where they have to go through and fight Anduin, or they have to go fight a different, you know, set of skills from Sylvanas. I wish Blizzard had done that instead. But then we get this weird just extra 5% damage. And I think when the race was happening, it was pretty cool because you saw, you know, Echo was like, yeah, we got it, we got it, we got it. And then they don't. And then Limit's like, wow, we're still in this. We're still in this. Um, but the fight itself just wasn't really tuned as well as it should have been. Because where we saw um, Sire go to a first reset, and then it was even close then, this didn't go to a first reset. It was killed, or it didn't go to a second reset. It was killed on the first reset, maybe only by Echo, but I'm pretty sure if Limit hadn't got stun locked by Painsmith, they would have also downed it.
All right, so how do you feel about the race in general now? We've got, I think, four guilds on Sylvanas, and it's been obviously the huge wall at Painsmith that a lot of guilds get stuck on. But then after that, it seemed like each of the bosses kind of fell over pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Um, I assume, I think usually raiders are in favor of having more difficult bosses. So I assume you guys are kind of disappointed with the bosses after Painsmith.
I mean, for Guardian, to be honest, I expected it that he would die fast because that boss literally has no mechanics. It's like if you either make the DPS or you don't. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing particularly difficult mechanic-wise. I think the big letdown was, of course, Fate Scribe, because that boss, like Lorg said, and a lot of people were miming him, but it had so much potential with the rings because it required a lot of coordination, right?
Yeah.
But then, like you see how it plays in Mythic, and you literally only have to step on your ring, and then just do the whole, like you don't even have to, like the beams, you don't even have to play them because you always
Mm.
go the same way. You're never gonna like fuck over a guy basically, unless it's in the last phase. In the last phase, there's only four beams, so it's way easier to coordinate, and you only have to play them once. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I thought that would be a really cool fight, but it was just so easy. To be honest,
Yeah, so yeah, I mean he's confirming what I said earlier, right? He's saying like Fate Scribe was too easy because you can gamify it. I'm sure he feels the same way about KT. It's too easy because you can just gamify it. And Guardian was too easy because I mean it's just a DPS and heal check, but they didn't tune it well enough. And you know Blizzard, I don't expect them to be able to know every single thing that players will do to circumvent a boss, whether it's, you know, using like a cheat death trinket, or in this case, you know, like whatever it is. Like I don't think that they'll always know what the players are going to do. But I think that they have a better opportunity for, at least for Mythic, to maybe overtune the bosses at first. Now I don't want them to like overtune the bosses to where it's going to take like 3 weeks for like the world first guilds to clear, but like Blizzard knows that these shards are gonna have like these like huge effects because they know what the tuning is, and the tuning isn't complicated like legendaries where it's like, like it, depending on how you play it, it could be this much, it could be this much. It's really hard to say. We just want it to be kind of fun mechanically, and then players will obviously sim that and figure out what the good DPS is, and then Blizzard can balance off of that. No, they knew most of these shard bonuses are just like straight up percentage DPS bonuses, or percentage health bonus, or whatever the shard happens to be. It's not like some complex interaction 99% of the time. So it should have been way easier for them to tune this. And even if it's not, even if I'm completely wrong on how hard it is for them to tune the boss, I'm sure it is hard. I'm sure that they work hard. I just think that it would be better for them to err on the side of overtuning, at least during this world first race, because I know that they're watching, and I know that the guilds running this want these bosses to be hard. No guild pushing Mythic wants the bosses to be easy. They want it to be a challenge because that's what they find fun. And if they overtune it, they can watch the world first race. We know that they watch it. They, straight up hot fixed the Sylvanas fight mid pull for Echo with their strat where they were like taking the ad by itself and then dying. They hotfix that in the pull. So we know that they're watching this race. And so if something's overtuned, it's easy for them to, scale it back after like a couple hours or a day of progress on the boss. Like they can see that it's overtuned. Like for Painsmith, like maybe it took like way more pulls, and then they're like, that's maybe a little overtuned, and then they pull back. I think Painsmith was perfectly tuned. I think it was the most well tuned boss for this Mythic World First race. But everything else was super undertuned, and the problem with undertuning a boss is that you can't fix it mid World First race. I mean, they can try like they did with KT and Fate Scribe. They said like, well, on this next clear, you're gonna have to do it the harder, like correct way. But at that point, it doesn't matter because like the World First race had already ended. So I think that Blizzard should err on the side of just overtuning for Mythic. I don't think the same is true for normal and heroic, but definitely for Mythic, err on the side of overtuning and then tune it back as you watch the world first guilds progress. And we know that like they already tune the bosses down like a month or two after the raid is released on Mythic anyway. They always do that so that more guilds can clear it, especially after the Hall of Fame is filled out. They're going to nerf the bosses. They did it with Nathria. They did huge nerfs to like Denathrius and like other bosses, not just in Mythic either, in Heroic and Normal as well. So we know that they're going to nerf the fights anyway, and like other guilds are going to have their opportunity, but let these guilds who want to test their metal as best as they can actually do so. Like that's the whole point of Mythic. If it's too easy, that's not fun for the people who want to push Mythic like this. It's not. And it's not fun to watch either when uh guilds are just like, sub 20 pulling like, Guardian. It's like it should have been like Sludge Fist. That it should have been like that where it took like hard progress and hard optimization, and it was cool. And I know people are gonna like think about like Stone Legion Guardians and how it was hard, but that was, and people didn't like it, but that was hard because of like issues with the implementation and like bugs with the fight itself, not because the fight was hard. Like people love hard fights, especially when they're like just barely doable. That's when people love the fights. Um, and I think Sylvanas was overall a good fight on Mythic, but I just think that that 45% thing was a little cheap, and it might have been a little bit too easy. I wish that it had taken another reset to kill Sylvanas.
I really think they didn't account for the shards. Like the shards give such a
Maybe.
huge DPS increase,
Mm.
Yep. I
and
think that's been a problem in previous tiers that Blizzard has trouble. How do you balance a raid around such a big difference if you have the socket bonus or you don't, or like in previous tiers, how do you balance a raid around people having like a lot of Azerite,
mhm,
or how do you balance around Titan forging, things like that, because you can't make the fight as hard as you would want it to be if you knew that everyone was going to have sockets.
yeah,
Mm.
So you have to like kind of tune it for the average. But then if a guild just gets lucky or figures out a way to like farm their sockets more efficiently, like all of a sudden they're all on steroids.
And I mean, come on, dude. Like, I disagree with JB here. I mean, I think, well, one, I think that super RNG things like that are kind of a problem. I mean, I'm not. I don't think that like taking RNG out of the game is an option. Obviously, I think like drops for like loot and stuff is interesting, but I think when you have like you have like percentage chance within percentage chance is like, well, did I get the drop, and now do I have the socket to fill it? It's like now you're pushing into territory that's really, it's gonna create some weird imbalance with a lot of people. So I don't think Blizzard did a good job with their implementation of the shards, and I know Nagira talks about this later, so um, we can listen to her talk about it. But I wish that they had done something else with the shards, to make it so that it wasn't so RNG based, where you have like some people getting 8, some people getting 2, some people getting none. Like, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
yeah. But if I'm honest, like I can see that with Azret because we were doing some crazy shit with funneling and what was it called, like Residuum. And they would buy pieces, and the islands, of course, you're getting a lot of power from that. And they would not expect us to do islands for 16 hours a day, in an entire like a week or like 10 days. It was crazy. I can understand that, but like the shards, like they know how they work, right? Like someone's gonna loot shards, he's gonna do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It,
I think it's weird with the shards because
I mean that Perfecto is literally, he just said what I said, right? Like, yeah, they know what the shards are gonna do. Like, it shouldn't be hard for them to tune around the shard damage, right? And I get that like maybe they didn't know exactly how many people are gonna have shards and not shards, but obviously like the guilds are only gonna put people in who have those for mythic, right? So maybe over tune it, maybe tune it for assuming that people are gonna have those shards, and then tune it back, like I said, as things kind of progress.
they were implemented so late on
yeah,
PTR. No
hmm,
one really knew exactly how much damage it's going to be for a long time. Like, I
yeah,
think people just recently, and we also didn't know how they drop exactly either. Like, people
yeah.
didn't know how they're going to drop. Are they going to be a
I
lot of
still
them?
don't.
Can you trade them? So there was like just a lot of like missing knowledge in like the
Yeah,
community. And then I guess they would have known though, right? They should know, right? Because they can test the shards and they can figure this out. So it's definitely a little bit of a weird thing
yeah.
that it's so like unbalanced and so RNG.
Because I mean, I was thinking about on heroic, we were talking about what kind of upgrades you can get, right? And like, for example, I was in on Remnant on Mythic, right? And I looted a dagger that's 250, like it's a Mythic high level dagger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the upgrade that I got from the dagger is probably like 1/6 of what I would have gotten if I loaded 3 unholy shards.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. So the biggest piece that generally, at least in Shadowlands so far, that you would have for DPS increase would be your weapon, and he's saying that a weapon upgrade is only 1/6 of the DPS increase that he gets from having the shard bonus. That's how insane these shards are. Now, if that's good or bad, I don't really have a strong opinion on that right now. I think the shards are interesting. I mean, insofar as it's kind of cool that you it feels good to get the like full bonus, but they really are just like percentage increases. They're not like, they don't like change the way you play or anything like that. And the fact that they're that overtuned, I mean, it's you're gonna be seeing people with like who play worse, like for their class, doing more DPS than someone who plays better simply because they have these shards. I mean, that's how much of a DPS increase some of these bonuses are. So I think that's a problem.
Like
Yeah.
the only upgrades you can really get is the shards. Yeah, there's nothing else. Even the mythic Sylvanas dagger is giving me less DPS than my set. Like
I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like the best dagger in the game gives them less DPS increase than the shard bonus. So it's kind of crazy.
it's crazy.
Yeah, I think they definitely shot a little bit overboard with the unholy set in specifically because
Yeah.
the other bonuses are kind of, I mean they're nice, but they're not as good as like the unholy ones,
Oh,
right?
what's happening with my camera, bro? Okay, it's fine.
Right.
But the blood one is like is still good. It's
Mhm.
not as crazy as the unholy. But the frost one is like I think I saw Mary simming it because he has it, and it was like a DPS downgrade. I don't know how that even works. I guess he was losing one of the maybe he had one unholy set that was giving him the damage, and equipping like the frosted made him lose DPS.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing is like if you get like a kind of like a gear upgrade, it might feel really bad if you lose like the set bonus that's actually giving you more DPS. That's like another problem that there could be with the way that the sockets currently work. So yeah, that feels pretty bad as a player. I think it's like you get a piece, but you can't really. It's supposed to be an upgrade, but you can't use it because it's the set bonus is less, and you can't really trade it after that because it's a better item level than what you got. So that could actually, yeah, I can see how that's also a really annoying problem.
But yeah, they definitely need to look at the frosted. Like I mean I don't know what they're gonna do. And the crazy part is you can obviously upgrade your shards, right?
Mhm.
And the upgrades are crazy. Like
Yeah.
the if you upgrade like the unholy set, I think someone was saying like it would like double the damage or something like that, or like the efficiency of it. It's crazy.
Well, and this, kind of harkens back to corruption, where we had a similar issue of like nobody really got to test it on the PTR, and it just kind of came out um, in its current form on live, and it like after a week, everyone was like, "Yeah, you guys realize this is like super broken, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you have the right corruption, you're doing like 3 times as much damage as somebody else with the wrong corruption. Like, what's going on here?" And we saw a ton of hot fixes come out immediately, and
Not as immediate, really.
yeah,
It's a little bit late.
a little bit later, a little bit
Yeah.
later.
When you think about it though, like the hotfixes with the corruption was kind of questionable, right? Because people were saying,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, we bought so much corruption, and I disenchanted my item because of that corruption." And then they changed it, and all of a sudden it's like, "What the hell, guys?"
Yeah.
But with the shards, there's like you cannot buy shards, you cannot like trade shards.
Yet.
You just have them or you don't. So in that case, it would be okay, in my opinion, if Blizzard says we're gonna nerf the unholy shards, right? If they would just say after like the first couple of days of the race, they would be like, okay, this unholy shard system, like it's broken. We're just gonna nerf it. I think no one would mind just because you didn't like go for unholy shards, right? You can't force it, right?
In my opinion, the only
Yeah, I think that's another good point is that you can't like if you can't target like such a huge DPS increase, I mean that seems like a bad system, right? Where you like if you're looking for a specific piece, like a piece of gear, you know which boss you need to kill. Um and you can like increase your chances of getting that piece by just like, stacking like whatever type of armor you wear in the group or if it's a mythic plus, you can just keep running the mythic plus. Like you can target a piece of gear, albeit it's pretty hard sometimes, especially if it's like a low drop rate. The one that comes to mind is like the Unbound Changeling. A lot of people like, or they did at least before 9.1. So, yeah, if you can't target it, that's a problem. And I don't know about nerfing it. I mean maybe or yeah, probably just nerfing that one if that one's the biggest problem because if people are just like imagine if you raid every single week but you just never actually complete the unholy bonus but you have like the blood or frost bonus and it just feels really bad because like you just do way less DPS than somebody else in your raid who puts in less time but got more lucky. Like that could feel really really bad. Is just like that kind of RNG feeling.
thing they could have done is like they could have made them drop from other difficulties, and they would just hotfix that live. So if someone, let's say, his guild is clearing heroic, he would be able to go into normal and they have another chance at the south. Or he could be able to do the first LFR wing because it's only one LFR wing right now, and he would be able to get another chance at the south. And maybe they could increase the drop chance of them. that's the only way I could see them fixing them. I think nerfing them would be bad for the people that actually got them, so they would be sad. And I think Blizzard doesn't want to make people sad; they want to make people happy usually. So
I
yeah,
don't feel bad for people that got 3 unholy shards already.
Me
If they're
neither.
sad, that doesn't. I don't feel
That's
particularly
fine
sorry
if
for
they're
them.
sad. But they could have also just like, because I really don't understand what they were thinking when it comes to the shard dropping. Just because in 3-4 weeks everyone's gonna have all the shards, right? Like they drop so frequently that you're gonna have them in 3 or 4 weeks, so it's not gonna be an issue anymore. So why not make it so they drop like you could just make them drop 100% of the time, you know, like every boss drops a certain shard and that's it. Or you could have them like be from Korthia even. Just say,
yeah.
hey, you can buy it for, I don't know, like
Maybe
for
you can buy it for embers, for example, that you upgrade them with.
yeah, for embers or for even for research as well. You could just say farm research and then you can buy the shards.
Yeah, so I think overall the race was okay. I wish that, like I said, Blizzard would do a global release. I think that would help the game tremendously, at least in this upper level. And as far as a kind of esport viewership kind of way, it would help the game a lot. And I think that even that would, improve the perspective of the game from a lot of players and even people outside the game. And I think that Blizzard kind of, messed up a little bit on the shards and the tuning of the bosses. And I wish that that they had just overtuned Mythic and tuned it back as these guilds kind of prog through it. That's my thoughts. If you disagree with me, leave a comment. And you also leave a comment about your favorite and least favorite thing about the race. For me, my favorite thing about the race was definitely watching the Painsmith prog. I think that was really exciting and fun, especially when they had to all figure out different ways around that layer of spikes that didn't have a path through it. And then I think my least favorite part was that Sylvanas didn't go to a first reset and that she was just killed, within that first week. And I think that was a bit of a disappointment. So yeah, please like and subscribe. I'm gonna make more WoW videos. I will make some more Final Fantasy videos, and I'll be making videos about other stuff too. So just stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Peace.